Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to be recreating this project, except it's going to be a little bit smaller and I want it to be off the ground. So here are the materials that I used. They are some leftover 2x4s I believe, and some leftover 4x4s from a project that my husband had. And the height of the project is just going to be the height of the shortest 4x4, so I'm going to have to be cutting some of these down. So I used a circular saw to cut my 4x4s, and I measured everything, of course, to the height of the shortest 4x4, which I think was about 21.25 inch. So you'll see me here. I'm just going to speed through some of this where I begin cutting all the 4x4s. So an important note that I want to add is, of course, at the beginning of this video, I put out a disclaimer that, this is not a tutorial because I am not a professional. I watched a couple of YouTube videos and then I decided I'm going to do this. I mean, of course, I've done this project before. I've used these tools before, but I don't want to tell anybody else how to do this because I barely know how to do it. But I do want to say this: it's very important to wear protective gear. Please, if you plan on, trying to attempt to do this, make sure you're wearing gloves, make sure you're wearing eye protection, and being very cautious and very safe with these power tools. So for a while I noticed that, there was a lot of smoking. So at this point I left and I talked to my husband. I'm like, this is smoking. Is it supposed to be smoking? And he explained to me, he's like, yeah, that's fine. It's okay. It's not from the drill or the saw itself. It's just from the friction from the saw against the wood. He kind of explained to me. I don't remember exactly, but he said the smoke was fine. It wasn't anything that the saw was doing. It was just from the wood itself. So my husband recommended that I use a different type of saw. I was using a circular saw and he recommended I use the other saw that you'll see me pick up in a second. Oh my Lord, I forgot the name of the saw. Y'all just bear with me. I don't remember. He told me, I just forgot. It's another type of saw. But anyway, I tried this saw out, and I'm gonna you can hear in the background, I let this play at regular speed with the sound. It was so much more difficult because it was shaking, like it was violently shaking, and I was like, I'm gonna chop my finger off. And I told my husband, of course, he was like, well, you gotta hold it tight. And I'm like, I'm holding it as tight as I can. But yeah, I wasn't too comfortable with this saw because it was just shaking everywhere, and I just wasn't comfortable with this one. So with all the violent shaking, I realized that I was cutting this at a horribly uneven angle. So I had to flip it around and re-measure where I needed to cut, and then I had to cut it from the other side, which I finally made it through, and it was a little bit uneven, but I figured I'll just deal with that later. So at this point, I finally made it to my 2x4s, and my husband came out and he gave me, I guess they're like some type of clamps, and he was like, here, he told me to use those to clamp them to, I'm just cutting these on our trailer. He said clamp them to the trailer and it helped a little bit, and it did. It helped quite a bit to hold the board steady. But I still used a circular saw. So I finally got everything cut, all the 2x4s, all the 4x4s, and I failed to mention this piece of, as a particle board, plywood, pressed wood, whatever that flat piece is called, that was already pre-cut too from the same previous project my husband did. So that's where I based all my measurements off of, was that rectangular piece. And I realized first, all my 4x4s weren't really sitting flat. They weren't, they were kind of cut at angles. I guess when I used the circular saw, it just wasn't as precise as I thought. I mean, they were flat enough to hold it up, but they just weren't really steady. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to drill everything in and keep it steady at the same time. And then on top of that, I cut all my 2x4s. You know, I'm looking at it, maybe it's 2x6. Maybe those are 2x6s. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're 2x6s. Anyway, I'm realizing that I cut all my 2x6s the same length. So this is a rectangle, not a square. I got frustrated and I left it right there and went in and ate. So I came back out a little bit later. A couple hours later, it got a little bit cooler, so that's why I have a jacket on. And I'm like, I'm still gonna get this done. Like, I was determined to get it done. I went on ahead and let my kids come outside too. I didn't want them out there when I was with the power tool, because I just, just for safety reasons. But I'm like, I was determined to complete this. I don't care how it turned out. I just wanted to make sure I completed this project. So I'm trying to figure out ways to keep it steady and drill everything in. And my kids, of course, are always super helpful. And along with being super helpful, they also got in the way, but I love it anyway. They're always, just trying to be a part of it. So of course I want to let them. And here's where the screws weren't going in all the way. Either that or I couldn't get them to go in straight. Oh, and there's where my daughter knocks the camera down, but that's fine. I was getting so frustrated. And I wanted to quit so bad, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to finish this. I am going to finish this. And then I almost made that mistake where I'm drilling it into the ground. I didn't. I realized what I did and I stopped. I should have got another piece of wood just to, push it down, have some weight on it. But I got it figured out and I got it completed. It's not perfect, but you'll see the results at the end. Just bear with me. So here's also where I began to realize I'm not going to be able to drill the screws into the 4x4s just on the ground because it was a lot heavier than I thought, which made it very unstable. So luckily my 12-year-old son was outside and he was so helpful. I told him to put his gloves on. I didn't want him to get a splinter, and he held it in place for me to make sure I was able to get everything drilled in. And my goodness, these 4x4s were so... I realized the importance of the evenness, how it needs to be flat and not cut. I mean, I thought it was flat enough, but they were cut at like slight angles, and it made all the difference of how unsteady it was. But like I said, I wanted to complete this project, so I pushed it all the way to the end. So I just screwed in the last screw and this project is complete. A little bit unsteady, but it can be used, I think. We'll see. But what this is going to be is going to be a off the ground herb garden bed, basically. Last year I had my herbs on the ground and I just tended to them a little bit more, and I was always hunched over and bent over, and it was uncomfortable. So I wanted to make them a little bit higher so I had a little bit better access to them, and I wanted to make a standing herb garden bed. So this is the completed project. I'm going to add a lining to it and then put my dirt in. It's a couple of days before spring, so I'm not going to put down my seeds yet, but if you want to see that process, I will record that and come back to see how everything looks later on. Thanks. Bye.